Hi, I'd like to make a video dedicated to children and to the inner child within you, and just to reflect back on, did you have an ideal childhood? And if you didn't, what are the pieces that you're missing? Because when we're missing things, we don't know what we're missing. And so I just want to give you a perspective. This video is inspired by someone who left a comment on my YouTube channel that his mother was enmeshed with him. So I wanted to make a video about healthy parenting and go a little bit into enmeshment as well. But before I begin, I want to read to you from Khalil Gibran's The Prophet on Children, and this is just a 2-minute read. You may enjoy it if you haven't heard it already. And this is something that I think goes to the heart of, do we own our children? Are our children here to serve us, or are we here to serve them? And to what extent? And a woman who held a babe against her bosom said, "Speak to us of children." And he said, "Your children are not your children. They are the sons and daughters of life's longing for itself. They come through you, but not from you. And though they are with you, yet they belong not to you. You may give them your love, but not your thoughts, for they have their own thoughts. You may house their bodies, but not their souls, for their souls dwell in the house of tomorrow, which you cannot visit, not even in your dreams. You may strive to be like them, but seek not to make them like you. For life goes not backward, nor tarries with yesterday. You are the bows from which your children as living arrows are sent forth. The archer sees the mark upon the path of the infinite, and he bends you with his might, that his arrows may go swift and far. Let your bending in the archer's hand be for gladness. For even as he loves the arrow that flies, so he also loves the bow that is stable. So, just in English terms, layman's terms, our children don't belong to us. They are a gift. We are the garden, and they are the seeds that God or nature, the universe, has given to us as gifts. And it's our job as parents to prepare a fertile garden for them to grow, and not with the intention that they don't belong to us. They are their own souls. And in terms of the physical form, one day they will leave us. How can I prepare this person to be a powerful, independent, courageous, curious, happy person in the world? Okay, that is what I saw as my job as a mother. And so before I got pregnant, I did a bunch of like panchakarma treatments, and I was like, God, give me some beautiful souls, give me some angels, and he did. I would share this beautiful picture of my 3 children, three little blonde-haired little angels, and they were very happy when they were little. And I think you can see on the faces of children when they're happy, but I won't share them because just to preserve their privacy. Anyway, now here are a lot of things that come up that make it difficult to be a good parent. All right, let me adjust the camera here. Being a parent is a great challenge. All right, it's a great challenge, and many people today don't even want to have children because they realize they don't want to invest the resources required. It takes a lot of resources to raise children. Financial resources, meaning that money you would spend on yourself, to go on vacations or eat well or buy a new outfit. You can't, because now it has to go to your children. They're very expensive. Like their clothing, the diapers, the daycare, the classes you have them in, the time you have to take off work, and then you want to buy them things. So you need financial stability. Really helps, although it's not the most important thing. You need emotional stability. The most important quality you need for raising children is mental and emotional health, to provide them a stable home, a loving home, and a nurturing home. And to the extent that parents are lacking in mental and emotional health, their children will suffer. Now, even for me, I tried to do the best I could parenting. I took parenting classes. I was a stay-at-home mom. I had a husband who was there. I had a stable life. But still, there are a lot of aspects of having children that are very difficult. Let me share those with you. I remember going to my 6-week post-op birthing appointment. They're like, "What's it like to be a new mom?" I'm like, it is not all it's cracked up to be, because my baby does not sit around smiling like the baby in the ads. She cries nonstop. I can't comfort her. I'm super stressed out. And my ex-husband and my husband at the time, we used to joke that now we know why people snap and hurt their children, because we had too much self-control to snap, but they can drive you nuts, especially when they're little. And if you don't know what it's like, imagine that you are home. Imagine you have a little dog that is super cute, but it keeps chewing up your furniture. Or you have a roommate that keeps eating your ice cream. And you might say, well, you love this child. Well, you don't when they're annoying you. Or imagine that you're, I don't know if you can imagine it. You have to have gone through it. They cry a lot, they're really needy, and you lose all your sense of space. Like right now, I can make a video. If I had a little child, I wouldn't be able to make the video now. I have to completely annihilate a lot of my own self. Okay? And I have to be able to calm this infant that is so needy for years. Play with me, feed me, change me, love me. They're so needy. And for a lot of people, it's very difficult, because in order to be giving to someone else, I have to be full inside. So therefore, any parents who are struggling with alcoholism, depression, they're bedridden, physical pain, instability in their lives, or their relationship broke up, somebody died, all those things that make a parent have to focus on their own life and their own pain, they're not able to give to another person. I don't know if you guys understand, if this makes sense. So this is one of the basic, easily understandable reasons why some people make bad parents, because they have their own pain to deal with, and it's hard to be present. This is the basic quality you need to be a good parent. One, you have to be able to be present with this person and fill their emotional needs 24/7 for years. And if you can't be there, you have to leave them with a reliable caretaker, like your spouse, your parents, a good preschool, which costs you money. You can't just leave them wherever, and you don't want to. And then you have to be emotionally stable enough to constantly pay attention to them and look out for them. And to the extent you're not, they're going to suffer. Okay. So it's really challenging. Now, I will say that it gets easier after the second year. And initially, when kids are little, they need a lot of love and holding and attention and affection. And some parents do really well with that, because, children also give you this unfettered adoration. In a lot of ways, they're like a little dog. because a lot of parenting has to do with behavior modification. Basic parenting is just behavior modification. And where a little puppy is very needy, you can't really leave it. But your puppy adores you, and so will your children. Now, what can easily happen with some parents is they get used to that adoration, because there's a lot of power in being adored, even if it's your children, and they adore you. They look up to you like a god. And some people like that power, and they like the comfort, and especially, I would say for moms, we do a lot of cuddling and holding with our kids, and some of these moms whose husbands are working a lot, they can easily turn to their kids for comfort. And then they start making their kids responsible for their comfort. But I will go into that in a second. First, let's talk about healthy parenting. So a healthy parent ideally has, a stable physical environment so the kids aren't moving around all the time, with the regular routines. You want regular caretakers who love the children and see the children as recipients of love and mentoring. You want a reliable, stable people, caretakers who are happy and joyful. Any kind of fighting and arguing, kids have no boundaries. They take that all in and absorb it. It's very shocking it's trauma to a child to be around parents who are always arguing. It causes them to shut down their emotions. And then you wonder why as adults they don't have any feelings. They had to shut it all off to survive. So initially you have to love them a lot. And then later on, children will give you signals that they want to start spending time with their friends. It kind of starts around age 3, 4, or 5 in preschool and kindergarten. They'll start asking to spend time with their friends. And that's kind of so first when you have kids, you lose all your freedom. You kind of get used to that. You get used to being adored, and now they want to spend time with their friends. And I'm like, okay, I got to support that. I got to encourage that, And I felt a little bit of a pinch. But I had to encourage that because I wanted them to enjoy their friends and be able to build friendships. Even little boys will go around holding hands with the other little boys, with their little friends. They don't know that they're not supposed to do that because it could make them gay and all this other bullshit. They want to sleep with their parents. It's kind of cruel to put a little child in a crib in another room. I mean, little puppies don't sleep like that. They want to snuggle up, they want to be loved. But as they get older, as they get more responsibility, they get more freedom. It goes hand in hand. And they want to spend more time with their friends, and you have to let them. You can't be jealous or, shame them for it or hate on their friends. You have to encourage that. And some parents don't, because they notice the child pulling away, and they don't know how to fill their own emotional need, and now they're using their child for that, and that's very harmful to a child. It's a huge boundary violation. And now the child starts to feel responsible for mom or responsible for dad. Or if the parents are arguing, or one parent is drinking too much, or one parent says, ask your dad to stop drinking, it's a form of abuse to hold a child responsible for anything. Now, if a parent is sick, it's fine, if your parent's sick, it's fine to tell your kids, hey, I'm sick. I'm really sick. You're going to have to make your own dinner. That's one thing. Or they're older, they can make their own dinner. But to make a child responsible for your emotional needs ever is a form of abuse. In my opinion, it's a form of abuse to make a child responsible for my emotions, my finances, or anything about me, because we are autonomous beings. I'm an adult. It is still, in my opinion, I'm 60, it is still my responsibility to not burden my children with anything going on in my life, whether it's finances or emotions or mental. Now they're old enough, they're in their late 20s, that I can have discussions with them. I share with them what's going on in my life. But if you want to know if your parents are abusive to you in some way, emotionally abusive, just ask yourself, do I feel responsible for one of my parents? Do I feel responsible? Financially responsible, emotionally responsible? And another question to ask is, am I afraid of my parents? Am I afraid? Am I afraid to, do I have to walk on eggshells around them? And can I go to my parents for comfort? Can I go to my parents to share something? Or are they just going to criticize me, lay in on me, belittle me, shame me, tell me it's all my fault? Are they like a safe person to go to? And the answer to any of that for a lot of people is going to be like not the answer you want. And so that's where you can see where you can take some distance from your parenting and from your childhood. But I've experienced just firsthand seeing mothers who get emotionally enmeshed with their sons, and now the sons feel responsible for their moms, and they think that's normal. It's not normal, if you want to use that word, to, put your mom's needs ahead of that of your girlfriend or your wife or yourself. Your mother and your father are adults. They're responsible for themselves. And I would suggest if you are in a situation where you feel responsible for your parents, is to get some help with some therapy or send them to therapy. But these people will not want to go to therapy. Any parents that are enmeshed with you probably won't want to go to therapy. They love that, they love the system that they have going, and there's nothing wrong for them. I mean, hell, you're helping them out, you're paying for them, you're there when they want you, and everything's fine in their world. But it's a form of enmeshment is a form of abuse, and there are books written about it. I bought 3 books on the topic, and I lent them out to a friend. So when I get them back, I'll read them. But there are other things that can happen. Now, as a parent, some parents are too protective of their children. I think it's important that children get their own validation. And I learned a lot from reading Maria Montessori's books. First of all, they have to learn to do things for themselves they want to. So some parents keep their kids dependent by, doing everything for them. Like a 4-year-old can make their own toast. A 5-year-old can tie their own shoes. And a 7-year-old can tell the teacher when he has to use the bathroom. It's helping them to have their own voice and lose dependency on you. So you teach them how to clean up after themselves, and you hold them accountable, and you have rules with consequences. Okay, you don't want to pick up your toys, then these toys go in a big box. Mommy will put them in the garage. And then a few months later, I bring them back out, and it's like, okay, if you feel like you can pick up these toys today, you can have these back. It's really important. And also if they say, Mommy, do you like this painting? And you go, well, what do you think about this painting? Get them to validate themselves so they're not always looking for external validation. I could go, yeah, I like that painting. Then they're always going to start looking for external validation. So you want kids to validate themselves. Mom, do you like that painting? Oh, I see you really like to paint. Notice what they like doing. I see you really like to paint. Yeah, and then they feel really seen. Mom sees that I like to paint. I do like to paint. Or I see you're feeling really sad. I see you're really sad. What happened with that friend at school? You want to get them to, you honor their feelings, and you want them to, in my opinion, get their own sense of encouragement and a love of learning. What do you like to learn about? What did you think about that? Rather than, you're such a good girl, you're such a good boy. Those are horrible things to say. I really recommend this book. It's very short, a class called Active Parenting. So good. It's very succinct, and I like things that are succinct. There's so many thick books on parenting. A lot of them are just a lot of words and a lot of reading. And Active Parenting is based on the work of Adolf Adler and Rudolf Dreikurs, who are early behavior modification psychologists, psychiatrists. Anyway, And it's all behavior modification stuff, which is really good. Consequences, don't do a lot of yelling. Anyway, it's also important for kids to struggle. They have to learn to struggle, but you want them to struggle in your presence as a parent. So, for example, you know, they're really frustrated because it's really hard tying their shoes. Instead of going, Mommy will do it for you, you go, I know that's really hard. Sometimes it's hard learning new things, but you keep trying. I know you can do it. Just do it like this, you got this. Or if there's a problem with the kid at school, so like, yeah, sometimes people aren't nice the way you want them to be. What would you like to do about it? You can handle it. I would only get involved with the teacher if the teacher was abusing her power. Otherwise, I'd be like, oh yeah, you have that problem with your teacher? You go tell your teacher. I didn't like the thing of all kids getting a trophy. And it's hard to see, if our kids are on a sports team and they're not as good and they have to sit out a lot. That's really hard to watch. But, life is hard. And what we want to do, I believe, I have this motto of, kids walk on the path of life. And on the path of life, if you imagine a trail that has little pebbles, boulders, you can't just take all the boulders away because life will have boulders. The idea is that you're there when your child has a boulder and you help them roll the boulder out of the way, or you're there and say, you can climb over the boulder, you can go around the boulder. I'm here with you, you've got this. And a lot of what's happened today, a lot of parents have really spoiled their kids. They try to remove all the boulders. They do everything for them, which is the helicopter parents. They get emotionally boundary crossed, which is enmeshment, and they keep their kids really dependent on them. Kids need to learn about finances. They should have an allowance. I wasn't perfect. I'm going to say I wasn't perfect, but no parent is perfect, and you don't have to be perfect. You have to be reasonably good enough. And all of us are going to have some kind of scars from our childhood. So our opportunity as adults is first to see what we didn't get. And that's what I hope this video will help you. And then for you to just give those things to yourself. Give those things to yourself. Sometimes it's even changing the story. I listened to a video years ago of this woman who, kids who are adopted out go through a lot of self-loathing, like my parents didn't even love me, I'm not lovable. But this woman changed her story to I guess her mom was like a drug addict or something. So instead of feeling like mom didn't even want me, she gave me away, she changed it to, I was born and I decided I don't really like where I am, so I'm going to find another home, and that gave her a different way of looking at it. Because when parents don't love you, sometimes, some parents will play favorites. That's also really bad, because sometimes what they see in a particular child is a part of themselves that they hate. So they project it onto that child and are abusive just to that one child. And, my parents had favorites. I was my dad's favorite and everybody knew it. And that wasn't good because it made me feel really awkward. And I don't know if my mom had a favorite. I think my sister was my mom's favorite, but I'm not sure. But, okay. Now, there are also some parents who are abusive. So I was just talking about neglect all along now. Like your parents are like emotionally not able to be present with you. So when you're a child, you can't go to them for comfort. That's what it looks like. You can't go to them for comfort, or you feel like they don't protect, your privacy isn't protected. You don't, they might snoop through your stuff. Or now abuse is, or an enmeshment is also abuse, but there can also be very direct abuse. And people who are indirectly abused in the ways I just mentioned, you didn't get a stable home life, or you didn't get comfort, and you didn't get someone to talk to you and care about you, how you felt, and who encouraged your artistic abilities, and who told you that Every child should hear, I'm so glad you were born. I'm so glad you're in my life. I'm so glad you're my child. Now, you might not have had that, so that's neglect. But a lot of people also had abuse where they were hit. Um, I have to say, I did slap my kids a few times because I was so emotionally overwhelmed when they were really little. And then I came across that parenting class, and that changed everything for me, thank God. But yeah, I wasn't perfect either, you know. And I didn't have my first child till I was almost 30, so I was already pretty mature. We had a stable life. We owned our own house like we were stable. But unstable lives make it harder. Okay, let's talk about abuse. There's physical abuse where you're really hitting kids and throwing them around and punching them and leaving marks on them, physical abuse. There's sexual abuse, and sexual abuse can be touching, but it can also be of the kind where your mom or dad are telling you about their own libido, their own sexual experiences. You know, you see mom, you walk in on mom with her lovers, um, or you hear them maybe, you know, or parents walking around naked well after, you know, like you can walk around naked in front of your kids when they're little, but after a certain age, I don't know, like 5 or 6 or something, you want to start being a little bit more modest and cover up. Um, uh, Sharing sexual stories with your kids, talking to your kids about touching them sexually or talking to them around about sexual talk, it's boundary crossing. Walking around naked, you know, and then of course the actual sexual abuse, and it can be done by a parent. It can also be sexual abuse as your stepfather abuses you and your mom knows about it and does nothing, and now you're not going to trust women because if you tell your mom and she doesn't believe you, that's very traumatizing. But if she believes you and does nothing, she's part of the abuse. How can you ever trust her again? So it's very weird. So these parents are abusing their kids, but kids have this natural desire to love their parents because they need their parents. It's kind of like a dog that you keep hitting. It's going to be afraid of you, but it's not going to run away. I don't think so. Maybe that wasn't a good analogy, but then also saying things like, I wish you'd never been born, you know, why do you have to cause me so much problems? You know, my life was better before I had you. I don't like being a mom. I'm just making these things up. Like, these would be horrible things to say to a child, abusive things to say. And then also making your child responsible, like a child feeling responsible that, you know, I know when dad gets drunk, he's going to hit my little brother, so I am going to keep dad company, you know, from 8 at night till 1 in the morning. Even though I'm just a little 8-year-old girl, I'm going to keep dad company so that he won't hit my little brother. That's abusive too. You know, people, these are real type of situations. Or, you know, I'm going to, anything that a child has to do to keep a parent from hitting another child or hitting mom or being responsible for the parent's emotions. But direct abuse, sexual abuse, hitting of any kind, withholding clothing or food. I mean, some people are very mean to their kids. They sell their kids or whatever they do. But when those things happen, people usually know that it happened. The things that people don't know is what they didn't get. They don't know what they didn't get. And, you know, I'm fortunate to have had like a really loving mother. And so, you know, I adored my mother. She, you know, I tried to copy her. I still kind of copy her. You know, she always was very feminine and wore pretty dresses and was a homebody and meditated and loved being a mother, and it's just sweet and loving. And my mother was codependent. She had to learn not to be, which she did after in her 30s after the divorce. Now, with my dad, I always felt loved by my dad, but he was kind of a vacuum in my life because he worked a lot. And when he didn't work, he was gone a lot. I think he was gone a lot because he was gone with his friends. I think he was womanizing a lot. And then when our parents got divorced, because he was a little bit controlling, we didn't really like to be around him. So after the divorce, he kept wanting to see us, and we just didn't want to go over there. We did go over there, but he was always a little bit bossy and controlling, that Persian way. So we didn't really like him that much. And we avoided him a lot because we were afraid of him and he was a little bit controlling. But I will say, I do know that I always felt loved by him. So, yeah, I was never physically abused, emotionally abused. I would say there was emotional neglect only in the sense that, when I had a problem as a child, I couldn't go to my parents because they had their own problems. My dad was gone a lot, and my mom had 3 young children and all the housework and all that. And so she had a lot on her mind. That's just kind of how it was. It wasn't intentional on her part. I would say that it's really nice to have an experience of being loved by a mother and loved by a father. And I would say that out of my childhood, my gaps would be maybe with men and not really, I don't know. I guess I married somebody who wasn't really emotionally available, like my mother. I think he was a little bit more like my mother in that way. And so, one of the things that we get to do as adults is see where our childhood fell short, how we can give those things to ourselves so that we can make better choices in our friendships. I hope this video has been helpful for you guys. I know there are a lot of people who have a really good relationship with their dad, but the mom was dysfunctional in some way. Other people had a really great mom, but the dad was dysfunctional or absent in some way. And I just think we have to be aware of, people don't really like to look at the fact that it really shaped them, their view of men, their view of women, whether they trust men or they trust women, whether the world is a safe place, how a woman should behave, how a man should behave. I think just looking at how do I feel about my mother, I think we all have to make peace with that relationship in some way, just make peace with it. To what extent do I copy my mother or my father? To what extent am I attracted to people who are like my mother or my father energetically? What parts of my mother or father do I have in myself that I hate? Like, it's a lot of shadow work and stuff like that. I think a little fun exercise to do if you didn't have loving parents is to imagine having different parents, they could even be a different race, different ages, have a different look. And just imagine yourself as a little child being held by them and them telling you how much they love you, how happy they are that you were born, what a beautiful child you are, and how loved you are, no matter what you do. And just imagine different scenarios, and they still love you. You spill the milk on the table, it's a big mess and it's loud, and they just say, "It's okay, babe. It's okay, we can clean this up." And they love you. And just to give your nervous system some new experiences, that's one activity that I think is really good. Just to kind of reprogram your mind or to imagine a different childhood that you could have had. I hope this video has been helpful, and thank you so much.